Welcome to The Cosmic Entrepreneur, the podcast where mystical wisdom meets the world of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Christine, and I'm honoured to be your guide on this cosmic journey of self-discovery and business success. Each month, we'll explore the fascinating realms of spirituality, energy healing, astrology, Akashic records, many other esoteric practices, and multidimensional aspects of entrepreneurship. Through open conversations, shared experiences, and practical insights, my intention is to empower you to integrate these profound teachings into your personal and professional life, helping you manifest abundance, align to your highest timeline, and make a difference in the world. Whether you are an inspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the intersection of spirituality and success, this podcast is here to enlighten, empower, and elevate you. So we have stopped off talk about ayahuasca.
Yes. So I got the visit from the frog and went to the Kambo session, this facilitator, by myself. And I know people would think you're mad. You're going to like this place that you don't even know. I got a taxi to pick me up. And went. There was a number of different people, like 3 or 4 other people deciding to do Kambo. And the facilitator had said to me that, I'm really lucky this weekend. We have a shaman from the Nuki Queen tribe, who was over basically spreading the message of the medicine, and he's actually holding an ayahuasca ceremony this weekend as well. So I was like, oh my God, I wonder, is this a sign or whatever? Anyway, I went, had no plan to do the ayahuasca, and went and done the Kambo. I had sat with Kambo twice before, so it was actually fine, and like I was okay with it. And if anybody doesn't know what Kambo is, it's basically a frog medicine that is in that. The frog is from the Amazon jungle, and they skim off a part of the frog that is secreted when the frog is under attack. And basically the tribes use this when they're going into the Amazon to hunt for animals, because this venom basically protects them from harm, and it's said to purify the blood, give extra energy, and all of this to it's like a natural vaccine, they say. So, but with that, you do purge, like when it's applied to different gates on your skin, it goes through the lymphatic system and it clears any toxins that's in the body. So obviously there was a purging that happened, and it was clearing my channels. And then, they were speaking about ayahuasca and it happening this weekend, and I sat with it and I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to do this. So, and I was like, but I haven't prepped my meals. Like I've been eating. Well, actually at that point I had some sugar. You're supposed to really limit sugar, meat, and a few other things like caffeine and I think salt as well from your diet. But they were saying, the facilitators were saying that in the Nuki Queen tribe, they actually allow them to eat meat with ayahuasca. So for this particular tribe, it wasn't something that was a necessity, that you had to be vegan or whatever, that you had to cut out meat for like the few weeks prior to sitting with the medicine. So I was like, okay. So anyway, ended up sitting with ayahuasca for 2 nights, and that was mind-blowing. Like, mind-blowing experience. Even before I had sat with the medicine, like ingested it, taken a sup of it, my hips and my root, like I just felt like, I don't know, it was just crazy. I felt like I wanted to get down and do some yin yoga on it. My hips were killing me. It just felt like a massive clearing was happening even before I was, physically ingesting it. So because I had the intention of sitting with this medicine, and I had asked it to support me on my path, and I can't remember the exact intention I had for it, but what I experienced was like out of this world. The first night, it was like I was building a relationship with the plant, really, and I was learning to trust. And then the second night, I got fucking kicked around. It was like I was just being I was purging. I was really like going through a difficult time. At one point, I thought that the experience, I thought that my nieces were going to be told, your auntie died in Bali. Like, genuinely thought that it was really, really strong, the experience. This is why I know a lot of people, it's a trend for people to go and do plant medicine ceremonies. I would be cautious, in a sense that makes sure your nervous system is regulated, that you have time off out after work to basically clear, to integrate the messages that is coming through from the medicine. But
Yeah.
really, what I realized to come, like that thought of, oh my God, I'm gonna die, that's your ego. That's the ego death. That's an aspect of you dying off that you're trying to hold on to. That is part of you that's really trying to hold on out of fear. And like, different images that I seen throughout the experience was, ayahuasca showed me of, it's like she was scanning my body, because different muscles were twitching, and like, I had no control of my body. At some point, my hands were like going like this, and I, you know, we're all sitting in this circle, like, and there's medicine music playing. It's so amazing. And yeah, I just remember at the second, I think it was the second day I sat with it, holding on, like holding my body, bracing my body, right, trying to control the journey, and I was fighting the medicine. I was like, no, I don't want to let go. I don't want to let go. If I let go, I'll die. And I just kept hearing, let go, let go. And I was like, no, I was so, because I'm really stubborn. I was like, no, I don't want to. If I let go, I'll die. And then it was like, let go. And then it showed me what I was doing to my body from not letting go. And this is like a continuous process of how you want to control everything in your life, Liz, and how we all want to control. If we're living on this earth, we want to control all the time. We want to control how other people perceive us, what we look like, how our journey unfolds, the direction our path goes in. And the medicine showed me, when you let go and allow spirit or a higher force to support you and guide you, you're met with so much love and abundance. And the image I seen was like my heart, and how everything was really tight around it, like caged nearly. And it was like, when I realized it was showing me, my jaw was like holding on like this. My whole nervous system was stuck. And then as soon as I let go and surrendered, it was like everything disappeared, and my heart showed me a vision of my heart just completely gold. And then all this gold light started to come into my body, and it was like I was in my body for the first time. I was like, oh my God, this is my body. My body is fucking amazing. Look at everything that it does for me. It was like this first time being in it. It was like I had been returned back to my body fully. It was so unbelievable. And then there came a point where I was kind of lying down to the side, and I could just hear beep, 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 beep. And I was like, what the fuck is this, And it was like I was reprogramming part of my brain. Like, it was like this computer sound. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, what is this?
Oh, so funny.
Yeah. And like, the first night I sat with it, there was two girls on either side. And the second night, there was two men on either side of me. So I felt like I needed them men beside me to support me in the journey. Like, I felt like nothing was a coincidence. Like, it was all a synchronicity. They were there to help me, go through this journey. And I've seen like so many things. Like, it showed me what it was like to be wind. It showed me what it felt like to be a leaf. It showed me how we are all so connected. Like, and yeah, unbelievable experience.
Oh, wow.
And I know I've gone off on a tangent. How did I end up doing the ayahuasca? Oh, sorry, that was it. Yeah, that's how I ended up doing it. By accident, really.
What happened? Yeah, but it just couldn't happen. It was like a next thing that you were meant to do after combo. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the story is just so funny. But like you were saying, because I was going to ask, like when you're receiving the messages while you're in it, like, is it hard to, I suppose, understand the messages, or you're like, is that the aftermath, like where when integration happens, or is it just when you're in it and you're like, oh my God, yeah, everything makes sense right there and then?
No, not everything made sense. I felt like I was given breadcrumbs, and
Yeah.
as the days, months, weeks unfolded, the medicine was working with me and guiding with me to where I needed to be. So, like, not long after that, I got this sense I need to leave Bali. And you know, I had, because I was doing different, I think it was bar. Did you ever hear of bar? It's like bar, it's like Pilates, something similar, ballet kind of thing. I was doing that fitness thing, and I had paid for a month, and I was like, right, I'm gonna stay the month and book my flight after that. And I couldn't get a flight. And my friend tried to do it on her phone, and she could. The only flight
Oh,
I could get was the week after. And sorry, it wasn't even, it was like 5 days after. And I was like, I'm going to have to leave all those classes I paid for. I was just being told to leave Bali. And she was like, that's so strange that I can book that flight and you can't. It was really weird. Things like that were happening where
yeah.
I was just being directed, no, you have to leave. No. And there was
Mhm.
different things that it showed me that, I read back over my journal recently from a year ago, because it was a year ago I'd done it now, and things are only making sense now. um and it was all around, like, your relationship with self and your relationship with other people, and how you love yourself and how you treat yourself. And you know yeah, just loving your body and how the wisdom is in your body, and coming back to the breath. That was also why I done my breathwork training, was because in the journey I was holding my breath, and the medicine was telling me, when you're in fear, you're holding your breath and you're restricting your breath, and this is what it's doing to everything around the heart. And when I let go and I started to breathe, that's when all the light started to come in. So it was
Yeah.
basically, when I interpret that as a message, our body is a vessel that allows life to flow through it, and the breath is life. And when we restrict our breath, we're restricting everything in the body, which also leads to a restriction in the heart. And the heart is the highest frequency. So if we're not connected to the heart, we're not breathing properly. The breath allows us to open up the body to access that. But the fascia and our nervous system and everything in the body is what is the communicator for spirit as well. It allows life to flow through. So if we're restricting in whatever way, it's affecting how we respond, and it's allowing us to sit in fear. And the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself, really. Like, it's not what is the narrative that's pushing forward all of the time of all these different things that, we're always going to be supported, but it's trusting and allowing, and allowing the universe and whatever that is for you, God, source, to come in, step in, and release control and allow it to support you.
Yeah, like I think that's the hardest bit, isn't it? It's like a continuous journey of like surrendering and releasing and trusting. And it's like constant. It's like the one constant that keeps repeating. It's just like you need to surrender, you need to release. And then, but we're so like impatient. We're like, but I want the thing now. Like, when is it going to happen? And it's like, keep hearing a message. It's like patience. Enjoy the journey. It's like you're not going to get to like, you're not listening to a song to get to the end of it. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the whole song. And I think it's because, like, we are living in this kind of fast-paced world through social media. It's just like, oh, I want this now, I want this now, but then we don't see everything that's like, that we need to do in the background, and just take slow steps. Like, why are you rushing? What's the rush for? Yeah. And I find, like, I think that's why, like, these kind of plant medicines, I think, they suppose they can open us up to more, like, I don't know, to be more self-aware in these kind of things. It's just that it keeps popping up in my awareness, and I see like a lot of people trying it, and I'm like, okay, it's like, okay, I want to do it at some point, but I'm just like kind of holding off just to see if something
Yeah.
comes into my awareness, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's the time. But yeah, because the more I'm like kind of go on the journey, the more I kind of need to like let go of the stuff. So I'm like, okay, it's just like I'm just getting this, like, this is maybe the next step in something. But
What I would
mm,
say is, so I do feel like it has redirected me to a space that I didn't think I would be in a sense of, like, obviously I'm back in Ireland. I didn't plan to be back in Ireland. And it's like I've been redirected back here for a reason, whereas I was just loving traveling the world and like enjoying that. But I feel like from doing, like, because that ayahuasca was a year ago, I feel like she has brought me back here for a reason. And it's, you know, healing the relationships that I have as well with myself, and being in an environment where I need to do that. Um, and, you know, the relationships that you grow up in is a direct experience of how you value yourself as well. And yeah, a big message from that medicine is like, if we can surrender in the middle of our most unmerciful challenges, we're met with the greatest, most unconditional love. But where can you access that unconditional love first? And that's for yourself. So if you're not showing unconditional love for yourself, ayahuasca will direct you and force you to face where you're not. And, you know, it's not an easy journey because you're facing your shadows constantly. You know,
Yeah.
she will show you if you are avoiding something, definitely. It really depends on, you know, what you're ready to work
Take.
through as well. So there was a lot of experiences where she showed me afterwards how I had been harming my body, in the sense that I used to smoke years ago, right? And like, I was chain smoking after the ceremony, you know, like a week after I was back smoking, and I was like, I haven't smoked in ages. Like, why am I? And I was like, really, and it was like, this message from the medicine was like, this is how you have treated your body in the past. And it was like I was reverting back to old habits of who I used to be in order to heal those aspects. But this is why I wouldn't, like, I have the awareness to understand that this is the direct message I was receiving. But some people don't have the awareness, and they're like going back into the old habit, and they don't have the tools to bring themselves out of that, you know? So
Yeah.
they will feel like they're reverting back. And if you don't have the awareness or the integration tools to support yourself, you can go and stay in that vibration because you think that, you know,
So you're
even
initially kind of going
ayahuasca, couldn't help me, you know, that could be a route that they go down. Whereas, you know, I've done that and that's supposed to fix me, but it's not. That's a guide to show you where you have abandoned yourself. And if you're going to continue to abandon yourself, you're going to continue to create the same behaviors that you have in the past. But she was just showing me where I have, in a sense. And it's up to me, and I have a choice then. How do I choose myself? Where else am I abandoning myself? Where else needs healing that I haven't looked at? And it's all inner child stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, and you were talking about like all of this, like all the stuff that's popping up for you to be seen. And you know, like with these kind of ceremonies, I suppose it's important then when you find a practitioner or facilitator who does it, that they like kind of interview you maybe before and maybe after,
Yeah.
maybe like the integration process, because there'll be nothing worse like when you're like having a freak attack or something and there's nobody to help you to go through it. Like you were saying, there was music playing, there was like the facilitators were amazing and they knew what they were doing. But like just to be cautious for anybody listening, to be like, know your stuff, but know
Yeah.
just maybe if somebody recommends somebody and just like follow the person for a while just to see if you're like clicking with the with energy wise, because I can't imagine nothing worse when you're, you know, being so
Yeah.
vulnerable and yeah, somebody
And
like
trusting.
helping you through it.
And like, just as an example, right? One of the points in the journey, I remember going, you know, oh, geez, maybe because he was saying if anybody feels like they need support throughout the journey, put your hand up, you know, and he'll come over. And there was one point where I really wanted to put my hand up, but I didn't, because I didn't want to admit that something might have been wrong, you know?
Mm.
And what kind of message is that? In the past, I would have found it really difficult to ask for support and ask for help. And I wouldn't want to admit that something's wrong. I would have just disconnected and disassociated in a sense of, no, everything's fine. Let's just
Mhm.
pretend everything's fine. So there's these different messages, even throughout the ceremony, where you're living this um instant experience of how you have abandoned yourself or not asked for help from your tribe or your community, and you're living out that experience. But it's up to you how you can decode the message. And there's so many people that I spoke with, and you know, they're continuously going into plant medicine journeys, and I'm like, so what are you learning? And they're like, oh, you know, like, I just know I need to sit with it again. And I'm like, but what have you learned? What is it showing you? And there's no integration there. Um, because they think that that medicine is going to fix them. Nothing can fix you except yourself. And there's no fixing. It's accepting. It's accepting
Yeah.
the light and accepting the shadow as one, because that is union. Whereas if you're looking to, disconnect from the shadow part of yourself, you're never, you just can't win. The acceptance is accepting the parts of yourself that you've betrayed, that you've disconnected from, that you've told is wrong, that it shouldn't be there. And all of those energies just want to be expressed instead of pushed down, because that's what's living in their bodies. It's the certain parts, the internal family systems that we are holding within us, that are always looking to be expressed. So yeah, these medicines and these healing modalities redirect you back to yourself as guides.
Yeah, and that's like what shadow work is, because I remember even at the start of the journey, I was like, "What is shadow work?" And then I've heard a few people say, like, "What is shadow work?" I'm like, "Oh, well, like that's when you face your
Yeah,
shadows, face all the heavy feelings that you've been suppressing." And then they're okay, and how do I do that? I'm like, "Oh, well, you can start off with like maybe some guided meditation, something like this is like your foot in the door. Book yourself in to Reiki somewhere, or do some EFT tapping." I found that very powerful on my journey,
yeah,
just to start working with my body. Do slow yin restorative yoga to start working, shifting that energy out of the body, because that's another question that I wanted to ask, because you are a trauma informed coach, and you have such big awareness how trauma is stored in our bodies. And
mm,
I remember you were saying we do inherit trauma as well, and people, I suppose, aren't aware of that. Like, I wasn't aware of it just this specific time, where I was just sure, no, it's me now, and that's it. But then I've come to realize, okay, past lives are coming in here, ancestral stuff is coming in here, because we're all essentially connected. So I suppose my question is, how would you explain that, like, okay, our emotions are trapped in the body? How can we even release
yeah,
emotions out of the body? Is there something that like a person can do to start working on removing the,
mm,
the heaviness and the
yeah,
trauma that they know they have,
yeah.
and like the starting point?
I would say presence, right? Okay, so a lot of people say meditation first. If your body is in a state where you can't meditate because it actually creates anxiety, it's being present with your body, but having space held for you that allows you to sit with whatever it is that is present, but not try and push it down. So on a cellular level, we are holding energetic imprints. If we look at our mother and father and their grandparents, there is trauma that is carried down, right? And that is survival mechanisms. That is cellular level. It's imprinted into a cellular level. And the reason it's imprinted is so the offspawn can survive. So if, say, years and years ago, there is a shortage of, say, obviously there was the potatoes, right? There is this famine imprint that is in us, right? Because there was the shortage. And that was a survival mechanism that all of our ancestors would have been in order to survive. So that imprints get passed down onto the next generation for a survival mechanism, so that we have the memory of, if this happens again, we can prepare ourselves in order to survive, because this is how to get this offspring. It's like the same happens in nature as well with animals. It's like when apes, they choose a partner that is going to be the strongest in order to survive, so that the offspring has a greater chance of surviving in the wild. And this is what happens with us as well.
Yeah.
So we have this imprint of a survival mechanism, which can be from trauma. So whenever your grandparents, your it goes like 7 generations back, but the most up to date research now is showing that it actually goes back 14 lives past, so the 14 generations past, basically. um
God.
we have an imprint of that in our cellular memory. And if we think about our grandmothers, we were eggs in our grandmother's womb. So whatever our grandmothers experienced in relation to trauma, we have that as a cellular memory, because we were there in the womb at that time. And we just obviously were not formed, we weren't present, but we are part of that cellular makeup. And when we are working with our bodies, we have these stored cellular memories, and that is energy, right? But then obviously it, but depending on the conditioning and how we're brought up and all of that, that can either enforce it as well. Because obviously if you've been conditioned down through, if this trauma has been conditioned down through the generations, it's going to be instilled as well. It's like a program that ends up being written, and you're enforcing that in as a cellular memory. You're triggering it with the conditioning, and it's allowing it to be more present then. And ways that we can allow ourselves to shift it is to challenge the thought processes that we have. Because if we have this energy stored in our memory, we have it's in our subconscious, and then it starts to come up into our conscious awareness as a thought pattern. So it's starting to notice the behaviors, patterns, and responses in the body. So triggers, looking at our triggers is a great way to start. So if you're noticing that you're triggered by a person outside of yourself, if you can understand that everybody outside of yourself is a reflection of what you have within that has not been met. So a part of you is looking to be met and seen. And if we can allow ourselves this space of presence to see what's within ourselves in the unseen, that then allows that to come up and be dissolved so that we can accept that as unity. So the light and the shadow, we all want to be in joy, laughter, fun, play, because that's what's socially accepted, right? But when we have grief, sadness, depression, fear, anger, we push that down. So what you resist persists, and all of those emotions have been pushed down over the generations, especially years and years ago when children were told they're not allowed to be seen, or they're not allowed to be heard, it's just seen. That was something that is a generational imprint of suppression of expression. So if you had a lot of that in previous lifetimes or generations past, you will find it hard to express yourself in this current lifetime. And you will have a lot of work to do around safety and, reparenting the part of yourself within yourself that feels unsafe. So it's okay. It's safe for me to express myself. And you will be hyper vigilant in a sense, looking around to see where is there a threat, because I'm having a memory in my body that's saying this is unsafe for me to express myself, because generations past, they were told they would have been punished for expressing. So really, it's reinstalling that memory and rewiring it. If you think of the nervous system as a memory card that is in a phone and it holds 24 gigs of memory, say, and we have preloaded a blueprint into this memory card. And as we go through our life experience, we start to install these memories, right? And this makes up our belief system. And it gets to a certain point where the memory card is full, okay? And, we're creating these patterns, we're living out from all these memories, from these belief systems. But then we start to get triggered because the memory card is saying we need to create more memory. But it's up to you whether you decide whether you're going to listen to the triggers to create more memory, or whether you're going to continue living your life with a full card. And really what I have noticed is when we start to challenge, and look at the triggers as gifts in ugly wrapping paper and unwrap them and integrate them back in as an accepted piece, we start to free up more memory. And then that allows us to access more memory, not just trauma. It allows us to access the wisdom of our ancestors, because not only do we have trauma that has been passed down through the generations, the transgenerational trauma, we have memories that is of how we connect to plants, how we connect to in communities. It's like this inner knowing, our intuition starts to come more back online, and we start to come back more into like our heritage and connecting more with who we really are, and with nature a lot more. So this is something that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. Definitely there's more and more people talking about it, that you can't think your way out of trauma. You can go to therapy, and I have gone to therapy recently myself as well, and that's been more to create more of a blueprint. I find, like, if you haven't had a blueprint of a particular way of how to live your life, you find it hard to navigate, because you don't, it's like saying, okay, change an engine in that car. How the fuck do I change an engine? I'm not a mechanic, So
Yeah.
sometimes we need a blueprint, like going to a therapist, to guide us to, the best path, and reflect back to us what may be the best path for us, right? But if we're looking at deep rooted trauma, we need to actually go into the body and create sense of safety and love in that. And that is patience, compassion, inquiry, meeting the parts of ourselves that haven't been met, without judgment, not pushing it down, and being supportive. And like I said, patience. This doesn't happen overnight. This is a continuous journey. And it's, noticing and awareness that this body is here to protect us. There is a thin layer of the physical reality and our skin that separates us from everything that's outside. And its job is to protect all of the organs and keep everything intact and protect our soul. And, you know, it's constantly guiding us to safety all the time. And in order to do that, sometimes it creates these memories to keep us safe. And this is our behaviors, where we have conscious awareness then of, oh, actually, I'm creating that pattern. Or, I'm realizing that I'm actually creating the same life that my parents have created. Do I want that life? Or, I'm actually in the exact same relationship that my mom and dad were in. Do I want that? Or, this is just different, what different people can experience, where they start to have this awareness of, oh, maybe I can go a different way. But this is the only way I know, because that's the way I've been programmed, So it's constantly challenging, and um
Yeah.
yeah, following your truth and following your heart,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
noticing when you're in fear and what this fear is trying to show you.
Hmm. Yeah. What you said there now. So start with being present. Presence is the first thing, and then the self inquiry. And then I find, like, maybe, like you said, talk therapy, going to somebody and be like, okay, let's just chat, get it out in the open, because it's just nice to talk to somebody with, yeah, like a different perspective, because we may have like a tunnel vision, or we may maybe not seen something. So it's nice to have like a different opinion, and like you said, like a blueprint, because we haven't lived this way before. So you're like, okay,
Yeah.
can I get some steps here? What do I do now? Because it's like, up to, in school, we kind of have, you're going to have a system. You go to primary school, secondary school, college, or whatnot, you get a job, but then you're kind of left your own devices. So you were always
Yeah.
in this system, and I was just like, oh God, what do I do? So yeah, because like you said, trauma goes so deep, and I think it's the when we accept where we are, like, because I think that's the hardest part. I don't want to be accepting that. Like, no, no, I'm not here. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'll figure it out. And it's just like, oh no, give yourself like that permission. Be like, okay, this is where I am, and I need help. And I think, like, most of us, like, I would say, I don't need help. Like, it's fine. I'll do it myself. And there's this mentality around even the people I'm around with. Like, sure, I'll do it myself. It's fine. It'll be faster. But like, do you need help? Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to ask for help. Like, there's like this like
Exactly.
shame or guilt like attached to it. Like, yeah, yeah.
And I noticed this, even when I was doing my yoga training, because I always look at, we're being given messages, like, at every point in time, right? And even how, if we sit in awareness of our own behaviors and how we carry out ourselves throughout the day. Like, for example, when I was in my yoga training and the teacher was saying, okay, take your bolster to support yourself. And I was like, no, don't need the bolster. That was, and that's just a massive message again. Like, why don't you want support? Why do you feel like you need to do this yourself? Why don't you feel like your body needs that support to allow you to rest into this pose? And
Yeah,
that's like the smallest little nugget of wisdom that you can observe within yourself and your behaviors and patternings, and then learn to rewrite that. So I was aware of, why do I never use that? And the she triggered something in saying, like, the bolsters are there to help you. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm refusing help because I'm hyper independent. I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not being hyper independent anymore. My body needs this support. I'm going to use it. So even a small little intention of I'm using this bolster to support my body to get into this posture so that I can create more flexibility in my body, which will then create more flexibility in my life. So whatever is happening on the internal with your body is what is going to be shown to you on the external, because your body is the magnet that calls your experiences to you, and the mind is just the antenna. So the mind is like the thought process, the like when I speak about this in manifestation, like when you are manifesting something, you think from a mind level, right? That's your antenna, you're sending out that frequency, but then whatever is in the body that is not aligning with that frequency, it's going to come up to be seen. And this is where you get the self-doubt, the different experiences, the fear, the response of, oh no, I can't do this, because all of those belief systems are in the body, but they're coming up to be seen. And when we show our conscious presence on that and accept them for being there without judgment, they start to dissolve. You free up more body, then you free up your body as the magnet, which is calling the high vibration frequency into your body so that you can embody it. When you can embody the experience you're trying to call in, you have more of a chance of it coming into your physical reality. And that's the same with any experience. That's with money. It's like, how much can your nervous system hold? Do you feel safe to hold that? Is there a belief system in your mind saying money is dirty? Is it saying that I don't deserve it because I have low self-worth, or I have to work really fucking hard for money? Then those belief systems are in the body, and anytime you get money, you're just spending it. That's your behavior. Your action is to spend it because you don't feel safe to connect with it, because it holds a frequency that you don't feel aligned with, you know?
Yeah, it's such a big topic. Oh my God, like with like pushing and going all the time, you're creating this energy that like you need to be working hard and you're just repelling money because it's like that like yucky energy that you're putting out there that I need it. I need this in my life. So it's running away from you. You're like, oh, get away. It's like being in a relationship. You don't want somebody to come up to you and be like, come be with me. I need you. And you're like, oh, get away from me. But you just want that like neutral energy. And I just love the way you talked about like the analogy of creating more space and then you'll be able to call it in, the embodying of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say is as well, with nervous system regulation and this kind of body work, it's not about creating just one calm. It's about allowing your nervous system to go through the different states of, like I said, when I was in the hurricane of like calm, fight or flight, freeze, or fawn, freeze, disassociation, and coming back down. But allowing, well, obviously not disassociation, but like allowing yourself to run through the different nervous system states, but safely transition from them, allowing your nervous system capacity to open and expand and contract. But if we start to resist the contractions, that's when we start to block things that are coming to us. So there's a natural expansion and contraction in everything, in our bodies, in the earth, in nature. We go in seasons, we go in cycles. So this expansion and contraction is what's going to happen with the nervous system, but it's allowing yourself to have that natural capability to expand, contract, and then go for a next expansion, contract. Next is always going to be this wave, nearly like a heartbeat, because it's all frequency.
Yeah.
It's allowing this to expand naturally and not forcing it. But a lot of the time when we're doing this work as well, people are looking at like trauma work and they're like, oh my God, it's like people are roaring. And, you have a look at Instagram and it's like they're doing the Kundalini activations or breath work, and people are screaming and banging and fucking really giving it loads. And that's just scaring people, one. And two, you don't need to have a cathartic experience like that in order to heal. Um, that's an aspect of healing, but it's not how it's allowing emotion to be expressed. But I've had some of the most amazing experiences from healing, to know that I am safe and loved by just being in complete stillness and receiving information from my body that you know, you are safe, you are loved, and it hasn't been this massive cathartic release, because some people don't know how to integrate that either as well. It's about creating safety to expand.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, so how would you say if somebody came to you? Like, because I think maybe some people might think, oh, like trauma could be as big or like or as small as you want. Like, it doesn't have to be something like I was in a war, like in a hurricane. It could be trauma like from childhood, or it could be anything kind of traumatic that your, I suppose, body like experience, and it could be as big as small. So if somebody just came to you, what actually, like, say, happens in a session? Do you have to be physically with somebody? Like, do you work with their body? Like, you, because I know you said you're a somatics coach as well. So would
Yeah.
that be, would you just work with their body, or like would somebody come in and you start maybe do the chat first, and then you kind of mix and match? Like, I suppose, how would it work if I was to even say book in for a session like that?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically when somebody books in for me, there's like a questionnaire that I would ask them to complete so that I can understand their past experiences, and it just really intuitively feel into what I feel would be most beneficial for them during their experience, and creating that safety. I really feel as well, one session is something that, you know, if you're trying to unlearn and create safety in the body, and you know you're after having different experiences in your life, one session is not going to be something where you see, you know, everything unwound from years and years of having experience where you haven't met different needs within yourself. So it's really about establishing a connection, feeling like, do you feel safe to work with me? Do I feel safe to work with you? Can my tools support you in this on your journey? Am I the right person for you to work with? The similar and then basically I would obviously choose different techniques that I have. So the inner dance Kundalini activation is an energetic life force technique that I use that influences your energy. In a sense, it awakens your Kundalini energy, which is your life force sexual energy. And that allows you to go at a process that is safe for you to unravel. It's like a purification process. So it starts from the base and it starts to unravel. And that can take a number of different sessions for you to even experience movement. So movement is something that you may see online where people are moving during a session unconsciously. And what happens there is that the energy, the Kundalini energy, has been awoken, and the body is moving to allow this energy to pass through to transmute whatever blockages are stored in the body, because different parts of our body represent different emotional states. So, you know, the likes of the shoulders, we're holding on to you know, other people's emotions. The lower back is safety, the stomach is anxiety, the lungs are grief. So because I have breathwork training as well, I would bring that in as well. If there's somebody who has, you know, been really affected by grief, I'd be more inclined to be drawn towards transformational breathwork and energy healing. Um, if Yeah, I really just take the person on a case by case and see which tools would be the most beneficial for them, that I feel can help them on their journey. But really, shadow work is something that is really important as well. And I send out a questionnaire like that gives me an indication of where they are in their archetypes, and that is, you know, do they have more of a specific archetype that is within them that is causing them to create a behavior or a pattern? And how can we pose some questions and have them look within themselves a little bit more and accept what's maybe in the unconscious so that they can be seen,
Hmm.
and bring it back into union within themselves. And what I find as well is that when I mix the different modalities and we have a mix of like coaching and either breath work or the energy work, or, you know, sometimes maybe a cacao ceremony, that the accumulation of them with the talk therapy, I'm always redirecting them back to themselves, in a sense of, you know, reflecting what I see from my level of awareness to bring them back into more of an inquiry within themselves so that they have the answer, because everyone has the answers within them. It's just being guided back to that. And what I've noticed is that people tend to really get a lot from trusting themselves in that way. Then they're not relying on someone to show them, or they know then, okay, I need to actually go off and I need to integrate that, or I'm trusting myself more in this experience, because if I have the tools now to understand how, when something is coming up within me, it's just an aspect looking to be seen, and part of a reparenting aspect that they can bring in to support themselves.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. I suppose before we kind of finish off, you did say you worked with different plant medicines. Blue lotus is coming up a lot, cacao is coming up a lot, and there's different ones that you worked with. But say, what was your kind of favorite? Are they all the same? Would you have them in your circles, or anything like that to work with?
Yeah, so the most popular one that I've worked with is Ceremonial Cacao. A lot of people are speaking about that now. I have been working with that for maybe 4 years. I would bring that into different cacao ceremonies, one-on-one, maybe mix it with breathwork as well. I've actually an event coming up at the end of the month where we're going to be doing a ceremony with cacao, cacao from Borneo it is, and transformational breathwork with that, and then energy healing. And yeah, that's one plant that I find really amazing to connect us into the heart. But you don't need to drink it to have an experience as well. And how this works is there is a spirit within each plant. If we look at every living thing on this earth has a spirit within it, right? And this goes for not just the plant of cacao, it goes for like the likes of a rose, which is the highest frequency plant. And I've worked with the rose a lot. That's really a plant that I suppose started me off on my journey. I used to buy myself roses and I put them on my altar, and then I just got an intuitive hit that, when they were nearly dying, I was taking the heads off and putting them into the bath. And I was like, oh, this is like a rose petal bath. It's so gorgeous. Like, if someone else done that for me, I'd love it. And what I started to notice is that, like, the smell of the roses started to get stronger with the hot water. And really what was happening was the essential oil from the rose was being infused by the hot water into the bath. And that's such a high frequency vibration plant. Like, if you were to buy rose oil, 100% rose oil on its own, you're paying a fortune for it. So and the rose is the plant of the divine feminine. So instinctively, my soul knew to connect with that plant and sit in a high vibration in order to help me to connect with my femininity more. So you were intuitively drawn to particular plants at different levels of your awareness, right? So at that point, that was the plant that I was working with. And then it started to move into ceremonial cacao for more of the heart. And then I was drawn to mugwort. Now, mugwort is a beautiful medicine that's really abundant in Ireland. There's mugwort and motherwort. The mugwort works in the dream state, so it works in like the altered state of consciousness, and I feel like it's very grandmothery kind of feeling. It helps with your intuition. It's really supportive for like your menstrual cycle. It's like it redirects you. And you can drink it through a tea. So I started to work with that for a while as well. And it's interesting.
Oh yeah. Sorry, would that be something you'd work with when like you're like doing some ancestral healing?
Yes, when I was doing a lot of ancestral healing, that plant showed up for me. So yeah, I had stopped working with cacao at that point, because I always think it's really good to take breaks from a particular plant so that you can integrate the messages properly. And again, like I said, these are all just guides. So it's not something that I would religiously do all the time. It's something I would, okay, I feel like I'm being drawn to that. Like, whereas sometimes you'll see in the spiritual communities, oh, I can't function unless I have my cacao, or, you know, that I wouldn't, that's a crutch really. These you need to come back to your own heart and your own wisdom. So yeah, I started to work with mugwort. I went for a tea ceremony out in the woods, and with a lady, Aoife de Dannan, just a few years ago. And yeah, then I was drawn to Wachuma as well, which is a different plant medicine. It's more like the grandfather. They call ayahuasca the grandmother. And this is actually a medicine that I worked with before I went traveling. And there was so much ancestral stuff that came up for me there. Um, not just from my own, ancestors, like crazy stuff from the land was being shown to me. And at that point I didn't really understand why I was being shown all these different things.
Yeah.
And this is a massive confirmation of what we store in our bodies as well, because this Wachuma, it's a cactus plant that you sit in ceremony with for a number of hours. Um, and there was a group of us in this ceremony. And at points in the ceremony, I could feel what the other person across the room was releasing from their body. So I knew someone had had an experience of, for an example, I'm just going to say losing a child, right? So I could feel that in my body that, oh my God, they're grieving the death of that, you know? Then I felt over there that that person was, experiencing a different type of experience as well. So it
Yeah.
showed me how we are so interconnected, like this invisible web, and how we receive these messages through our fascia as well. The fascia is like this network. If you look at a chicken fillet and you cut a chicken fillet, there's a membrane of a fascia, like a clear membrane. And these carry electricity, which is energy, throughout the body, and it sends messages to the brain. And when we're working with these plants, it works through that as a consciousness, accesses the consciousness of the plant, and then we download the information into our body, and it directs us to where we are holding memory that is stopping us from accessing, our truest, most divine light. And really, I seen, just a lot of suppression that has been stored in the land of Ireland, like connected to the tomb babies in Galway, the mass burial lands. There was a lot of, you know suppression of the feminine line. At a point in the journey, I felt like I was going to be brought off to get tested, because um like it felt like I was in a hospital and that they were testing people. And when you look back at the generations, how many women have been brought into, get electric shock therapy, and men as well. And I felt like my body was on show. I didn't want to show my body. I felt like there was like just a lot of separation and grief, and tons and tons of grief, anger, rage.
Yeah.
And then at the height and the peak of the journey, because it kind of goes in waves as well, and there was a point where it was really strong. And I remember looking around the room and I could just see, the people there, but they were older versions of themselves.
Oh
And
wow.
it was like their ancestors were speaking through them, and crying and grieving. And then I seen, these babies in roots of trees, and I was like, why am I seeing this? And when when all of this died down and the journey started to phase out and it started to lighten, we had a sharing circle. I don't know whether it was that day or the next day, I can't remember now, but nobody spoke about the babies. And that, I was the last one to share. And I was like, did anyone see them? And they were like, no. So I couldn't understand for months and months why I had seen these babies. And then, it's things started to, you get jigsaw pieces. If I was given all the information, I wouldn't have been able to understand it. So
Yeah.
it was like, I remember going out to Portmarnock. I used to be out there a lot, and people were talking about the tune babies at a point, and I was like, oh, what's that? And then I realized, because I had no awareness about it, no awareness. And it's like, oh my God, is that what I seen? And then I realized, like, just people were coming into my path where I was in circles, and people were speaking about these things. And I was like, holy fuck. Like, what that is the suppression of the Irish people from, what happened years and years ago, and everything being brushed underneath the carpet, and the the mass burial graves that haven't been acknowledged, and how, those souls are still in the land. And, yes, it was really interesting that I seen all that. And there was one point in the journey where my body had started to turn in, and like I was in a lot of pain. It was like a tetany, and I had to call the facilitator over, and I said, like, my hands and all, like, I just feel completely stiff. And he was started to work on my back, like started to do some somatic pressing on the lower back, pressing into it. And then he was like, let love in, let love in. And when I did, it was like this roar came out of me right now. Yeah, it wasn't me though. Like because it went on for ages. It was like
Wow.
just this energy came out, and it was like coming from the base. It was just, just this expression that wanted to be. It was rage. It was anger. It was, yeah, it was just this suppression. Yeah, it was crazy. And I remember going, wow, that wasn't me. Like, and then I just heard, thank you, thank you, thank you, because it was being released. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an energy that wanted to be seen, that was being released, had been probably locked within from the cellular memory of all the years of, you know, transgenerational trauma that has been suppressed and locked in our DNA. And when you start to express that and allow it to be seen and witnessed in a space, it's like all of this starts to
Mhm.
unfold. And then from then I could see, oh my God, like I had this awareness around why are we such a massive drinking culture? Like we're all just fucking drinking to escape. Like,
Yeah.
if there, that has been going on for generations and generations, where, you know, especially with the Catholic Church, it's like seen, not heard. You don't talk about drama, you gossip about it. You're not allowed to be fucking pregnant out of wedlock, and if you
Mhm.
are, the baby's going to be taken off you. You go to a mother and baby home, all of this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
all of that is suppression of our divine light and our birthright, and all of that really is still being unraveled. And some of us still hold a lot of that within our bodies. And depending on what your ancestors experienced in the past, whether they had electric shock therapy or whether they were in the mother and baby homes, or it's this unraveling, this deconditioning. And a lot of the time, the voices, those inner critical voices that we have, they're not even our voices. They're the
Yeah.
voices of the ancestors past, this imprinting that we have, that you need to stay in line or else, because this is what I experienced,
Yeah.
and it's about, hold on a minute, that's not, it's safe. We live in 2024.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
safe. I see you. I know that you're trying to keep me safe because of what you experienced, but we can step through this and we can move past it, because I can ask for support. I can ask for help. And when you do start to realize that all of those expressions aren't just you, it's like the living generations within you nearly, that then you can start to move past it and start to question and challenge your belief systems, as, are they really truth, or is this just an experience that one of my
Yeah.
ancestors had,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
trying to keep me safe out of survival. um
Yeah.
yeah, so that was one. Another, now that's not native, that's not a plant that's native to Ireland, but from that, then I really felt a draw to work with more native plants as well. Actually, sorry, it was Wachuma first, and then obviously when I had that experience, then I felt really drawn to start working with more of the native plants, because I was like, okay, I'm working with cacao, but that's not native to Ireland. What did the native people of Ireland connect with to bring them into the heart, like the Mayans did with cacao? And then I started to just ask, show me where I can connect with different, people who are, and then I was like, Mugwort. And when I started to work with Mugwort, it was so, so fucking weird, right? Because I had done this tea ceremony with Aoife Danan in the woods, and then I bought a tincture off her, and a tincture is like the plant in an alcohol solutions, and I was, dropping it underneath my tongue. But before I started to work with it, I charged it with the full moon. Just intuitively, I felt, okay, it's full moon, I'm going to start working with it. And that night, I had no water in the house, and I don't drink tap water. So instead of driving, I said, I'm going to walk to, and I never done this. I could never really do this at that
Mm.
point. I was walked to the shop around the corner from me, and I'm from Clondalkin, and there's a well in Clondalkin that I had been trying to find and I couldn't find it. And On the full moon, I stumbled across St. Bridget's well the night that I started using mugwort. And mugwort was the native plant that she would have worked with in her own, because she would have been seen as like a herbalist, uh, a midwife, a healer connected to the land of Ireland. So I felt like, how ironic is it that I'm going out to get water on a full moon, stumble across a fucking well, and yeah, like I just felt really drawn to like doing tapping on my head. Thank you for supporting me in forgetting or in remembering what I have forgotten. And I was doing this tapping at the well. Like it was just
Wow.
really a bit surreal, like when I think about it, because I really feel like Bridget, because at that point I connected with Saint Bridget and really felt like she was like a guiding light to help me to go traveling. Then she helped me kind of transmute and transform the old ways of being, supporting me in like the rebirth of that new experience of going traveling and all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but also making some awareness around the experience of seeing all the babies and all of that, like, and how the trees had communicated so much to me in that journey of the trees and the babies being in the tree roots. It was like the trees wanted them to be seen as well.
Yeah. It's like they knew Liz is here, she's working with the plant, and she's a woman now. She's able to release this for us. And the thing just came out of you because you're like, she's well able for it. And
Yeah, I don't
you're
know. It's
like, oh
mad.
my God, what
Like,
is this?
yeah. But like I always believe that you're only given what you can handle. You know, um, because you're born with a guide into this planet, into this dimension from birth, and your guide is there to support you, and you're never giving anything that you can't handle. You have the strength within you to be able to move, like obviously the last few years have been crazy experiences with psychic attacks, with hurricanes, and the different plant medicine journeys, what they've showed me. But like the fucking wisdom that I'm after getting from all of these experiences, and so much life experience that I'm able to interpret and hold that as a frequency within my body to support other people to not even sit with a medicine, but learn from the messages that I've received, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when you're holding and integrating the frequency of whatever you've worked with, people feel that anyway. If they're seeking out healing and they're creating patterns in their life that they want to break, and they're looking for someone to work with, they'll intuitively be guided to the person because they know somehow that this person can help them. It's energy. It's like a calling that your soul is directed to.
Yeah,
And
it's mad. You've worked with so much of plant medicine, but it sounds intense because all the purging, all the releasing that needs to happen, and it's intense, but it's just so empowering because you're releasing a lot, and then because you're releasing, you gain all this wisdom, and then you can hold more light, and then you can just, like you said, support others in whatever that they need support with, because all this like plant medicine has the wisdom. But when I started my Reiki, like I didn't have a clue about any of this, but compared
neither
to
did I.
how as you progress, yeah, you're like, what do you mean you're working with the rose? And then, and then we're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is how we work with rose. This is how we work with cacao. Because like you said, like you're like, oh geez, I can't wait for my cacao. It's like a crutch. But it's like, but
Yeah.
you're only drinking it because you want to connect to the heart. You want to see what messages what your higher self has in store for you,
Yeah.
like like how do you self-reflect, how do you self-inquire. And I think we can just kind of forget because we could be like, oh, this is all light and fluffy stuff, let's get some crystals and let's ground
Yeah.
and look at the sun, and and then you're like, oh no, you have to do the shadow work, because if you want to go higher,
Yes.
you need to release. Yeah.
Yeah. And if there is somebody who is like not doing shadow work that you're learning from, I'd start to question that. If they're only focused on love and light, then there's some questions there, because you need to be able to work with your shadow in order to integrate more light. And if you're only focusing on light, it's wishy-washy. There's no depth there. It's you're not the person isn't focusing on unity consciousness, and consciousness is light and shadow together. So you need to be looking at the shadow in order to hold the depth of the light as well.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember at the start, I think I was just like, oh no, I don't want to be looking at that. Like, oh no, this is too scary. Like,
Yeah,
but then, like,
yeah. And
yeah,
initially, I used to run away from the triggers. I'd be like, "Oh God, fucking hate being triggered." And then I was
yeah,
like, when I found out that there was like hidden gems in them, I was like, "Actually, what should I learn from that trigger?" And I was like, "Oh my God, there's a pattern here. These are all ugly gifts in ugly wrapping paper, or they're gifts in ugly wrapping paper." And I was like,
yeah,
as soon as you unwrap them, it's like you have a gift there, like of wisdom, and that wisdom then can be shared to other people to help them on their journey as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
it's mad.
it's,
And
yeah,
like it's like, yeah, it's just this depth and this reverence then that you get for life. It's like you start to see the hidden messages and everything. The
mhm.
universe starts to speak to you on different levels. And now sometimes you'll speak to people who haven't done the work and they'll go, "You're fucking crazy."
Oh
And
yeah,
they'll go, because they can't see from their level of awareness. They have a vision of like looking at this particular point, but they're forgetting about everything else that's outside, that it's full of possibilities and, yeah,
yeah.
different ways of experiencing life.
So
Mm.
it's funny how the more do this work, the less shit you less less
I
shits you
couldn't
give because you're just like,
give zero shits, yeah.
yeah. So basically, so would you recommend your pot to a friend?
I couldn't go back now, to be honest. Like there are, but
Yeah,
obviously there are points. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and go, fucking hell, sometimes I wish I never went on this path. Obviously there have been parts where I've been like that, but I could not live life, and I don't like using the word asleep, unconscious.
mhm,
Like, because there's so much magic that is there to be discovered, so much connection, so much depth in connection with the people that you're meant to connect with as well. Like, if I didn't do my Reiki, I wouldn't have met you, Christine. I wouldn't have met other people that I really gel with. I wouldn't have found something that I absolutely love to do. I would have been in that pattern of going to the pub on a Friday, going to the pub on a Saturday, hungover, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, doing the same thing again every weekend, and not finding my purpose. And I think like there's so many narratives out there of like, "Oh, you're crazy." But who put that in there? Is crazy standing in your own power, knowing your worth, and having more awareness? Like, no, crazy is doing the same thing every weekend, expecting your life to just be that way for the rest of your years and living life unconsciously, in my opinion.
yeah,
And yeah, following your heart is only going to lead you to positive experiences. And sometimes you have to go through, like, I'm realizing all of those experiences that I've had in the past couple of years have all been redirecting me back to me, you know, and how I can accept myself more and more and more. It's like, how can you unravel more? How can you accept yourself more? More depth, more access to your truth. Because if I'm a space holder, I need to be holding that frequency so that other people can reach that depth as well and feel
yeah,
safe to do so. If you're going to a space holder and they're holding breathwork for you or cacao ceremonies or whatever, and they haven't connected with their darkness or their shadow, you won't feel safe. Your nervous system won't feel safe to access the depth and come back out of it because they haven't done it themselves. It's a resonance. So, in order for me, if I am doing this work, I have to experience these things. I had to go through those nervous system states. I had to experience the psychic attacks. I had to learn from all of these because I am going for an experience where I want to serve to full integrity and authenticity. And with that, it looks like being challenged on numerous different levels in order for me to hold the depth and the inner knowing of what is truth and what is not. Otherwise, you're just pussyfooting around the nice stuff. And now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with just doing that because there is a space for that as well. But you'll notice, like, I definitely noticed as I've gone more and more into the path, the ones where it's just the light stuff that hasn't resonated with me as much because I've gotten what I've needed. It's like a bee being pollinated. So, or a flower is being pollinated. A bee will go from one flower and take what it needs and then go to the next flower, take what it needs, take what it needs. And it's pollinating each time. So you're actually creating a space for, more growth within yourself, but also a network of experience. So I feel like that's what's kind of been happening for me unknowingly. And even like this conversation, I'm like, Jesus, yeah, I'd have loads of experience over the last why. And it's an unfolding of like, we're preparing you for, what you're coming here to be, and now step into it. And it's so funny, like astrologically, Aries is like stepping into the leader. And we've had this eclipse in Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars, and so is Scorpio. And if whatever is happening in Aries is happening in Scorpio as well, because we have the same ruler. So this is stepping into the warrior, stepping into the leadership position, and holding space with integrity and authenticity, and shining your light bright, so that the people looking for the healing are going to find it. Because if you're not doing that, if you're going through all these crazy experiences, yours may be just as crazy as mine if you're listening to this, and then you're like, I'm just not supposed to do this path, because otherwise it wouldn't have looked like this. It wouldn't have been this hard. No, it's hard because it's supposed to be hard. It's hard because you have learned to trust yourself. What have you learned from all those experiences? You've learned authenticity. You've learned integrity. You know yourself better than so many others, and you can show that to other people so that they can know themselves. So there's a lot of that going on, I suppose. A lot of challenges for people who are supposed to be the new leaders in
Definitely. Yeah, it's coming up to be seen for everyone who's like in this kind of line of work, and like people are having like freak attacks. They're like freaking out, like going, oh my God, am I supposed to be on this path? Like, why is it hard? But it's there. It's supposed to be challenging you because you chose this path. This path is not easy, because you have to go through the depths, because you're going to be holding space for people who'll be coming to you, and they want that depth, like you said. So it's like, we need to be kind of experienced in the field. And from everything now that we've talked about today, you could really see how, like, even moving away from Ireland to like Mexico and then Bali, and it's like you're just gaining all these experiences, and it's like you're brought here because like this land, by the sounds of it, needs you, because this land is just like, people here like, okay, show us what you got, show us what did you learn on your travels, like, because people can feel that as well, like that you have something that they're like, I need something that Liz has. She has something to teach me here.
And I like, again, it goes back to frequency. When you are traveling around different lands, and I didn't even realize, I was just going to places where I felt drawn to. It's actually traveling ley lines. Like, I had gone to Peru a couple of years before, and I was at Machu Picchu. There's a ley line there. I was in Colombia. I was in obviously Mexico, and I was on different ley lines there. In Bali on a ley line, in Thailand on a ley line. So I didn't even realize I was traveling them, and I was like, what the fuck? There's
So
all
you're like
crazy
getting
stuff happening.
activated and
Yeah,
activated.
I was being activated each time, and the ley lines are like activation points where more consciousness, and when you are going on to this, depending on your astrological placements, it can activate different parts of you that are unseen. So when you travel, you open up yourself to really activating different aspects of yourself depending on what kind of placements you have. But I really feel, obviously, that from the awareness that I have from even going into different cultures and noticing that they say, oh, you're Irish and you're not drinking, you know you're here, why aren't you drinking, you're Irish. This is like this condition that Irish people are just pissheads, like, and why though? Why is it that we feel like we need to disconnect? Or is it because of all the trauma that is here? Yes, like, we still have the famine, we have the Catholic Church, we have the suppression of the feminine and masculine, because the men were just told to get on and shut up and get on with it. Don't express yourself. Don't connect with your emotions. So there's so much heavy oppression that we are still unraveling from, and I really feel like the newer generations are going to support us to move past that as well. Because but the thing is, this, if you look at it now, like, there's 25,000 visas after being approved for Australia. And, there's so many Irish people that are moving away, and obviously different cultures coming in. But I feel like that's a real call for us to connect back to the land in whatever way we can, by connecting to the different plants, maybe by learning a little bit more about our heritage, visiting the wells, the sacred sites, and yeah, just seeing what's there for us. And like sometimes when you go to these sacred sites, it's like, oh, I just went and nothing happened. Like, that's because you're waiting for something to happen. It doesn't need to happen. It's just you knowing that you're going to a space of high energy that will automatically flick something on really subtly in you. And it doesn't have to be handed a paper of, I went to this land and I started to electrify. Because that's what people think. Oh, I went to a really high energetic point, went to see the pyramids and this transmission came through. That's not going to happen for everyone. Like,
Yeah, it's very
so
subtle. Yeah.
very subtle, and it happens over time, different awareness. Like, one thing I will say, after I done the Wachuma in Ireland, before I went traveling, I went to Glendalough, and Glendalough is like really high energy land there as well. And I ended up swimming in a lake, or like the waters there. It's near a waterfall. And as I was coming home, this poem, actually, it was that night, I was writing down and it's journaling, and sometimes poetry comes through, and this poem came through, and I just want to read it out, right?
Oh yeah.
It's Vulnerability is magic, and it says, a little fish in the river of life, submerged in a guided flow, ripples alchemize the blows. Drowning in my own expectation, I have an obligation. Remembering the wisdom I've forgotten, guided by love unspoken. Rain from above, collected below, nurturing all that I will sow. Strengthened by roots that have a story, uncovered soon in all its glory. Reclamation to come from what has passed, maidens, mothers, and crones at last. So that was memory in the water, because everything has memory. And like I said, in that Wachuma journey with the tree roots, the memory of those souls are being communicated in through the land. And water, the same water that we have on Earth, is recycled. And that water has been on the planet for thousands of years. And everything is energy, which is memory. And, the memory of that water, when I was swimming in it, was like a cleansing, a download of the information of what needed to be expressed in that way of reclamation of the land on so many levels.
Oh wow. Yeah, oh my God, like that's just amazing. Yeah, that like the like water holds the memory, everything holds memory. And for you to
Water is
channel that
sacred.
home through, oh, that was beautiful. Like, oh, love it. Um, oh, that's some journey and a half. We literally done 2 episodes together because and so just before, like, thank you. I just wanted to, before we log off, I just wanted to really thank you for your time. Like, I mean, your generous amount of time. It's been like amazing to find out like the deets about your journey, like everything that you're doing. And, you're basically here raising the frequency of our planet. And I
Yeah,
just love
I know it, loads of others as well, though. Lots of others are doing it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's just lovely to connect. Yeah, I could sit here and chat for like honestly for another 10 hours because I'm just
Yeah,
like
no, me
I
too.
know. But I maybe before we log off, where can people find you and how can people work with you? So that we know.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as level up with underscore Liz. And you'll see in my link tree, there's options there to work and book in for one-to-one or group healing sessions. Yeah, if you have a look at my page, you'll see my offerings as well, just around mentorship. I sell cacao. I'm a cacao facilitator. And I hold regular yoga classes, but they're not just normal yoga. It's breathwork, energy healing, and somatics combined over a 4-week period to support people in coming home to their body. Yeah, so I do the group events, probably 2-3 events a month, sometimes at the weekends. And yeah, they can range from breathwork and inner dance kundalini activations, which is a really potent energy healing tool that allows you to access different aspects of the right brain, which is the creative brain, and your life force energy, allowing you to connect to the awakened dream state. So it's like you're in a kind of a trance state, which allows you to complete trauma cycles and access, all that there is, really open up your awareness to what life has to offer. So
Yeah, I've experienced them myself, and like, oh, honest to God, they were like, you can't put it into words because you have to experience it. I tried to leave like a review, and I was like, you have to experience it.
Yeah, I know it is something that is like, a couple of people that I worked with last week were like, it's out of this world. Like, it's something that I have never experienced before. And there's like an integration process. And obviously I'm there being really supportive to people after the experience as well, for whatever may arise, because I just think it's important to have that point of contact as well, and duty of care for clients afterwards. So
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I will leave your details in the show notes as well, so people can reach you. So thanks again. Thanks so much.
beautiful. Thanks so much, Christine.
Thank you for allowing me to be your guide on this cosmic and entrepreneurial journey. I hope this episode inspired you in some way, and would love to hear your thoughts. So send me a message on my Instagram at christinemar.co, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with a friend. Until next time.